So what you were really interested in was distribution of your models. And I think the goals are probably going to vary from person to person. I think most of you want to facilitate the sharing of the tools that you've developed. I hope there's some altruistic motive there. You developed a great mouse model, and you want other researchers to use it to further their studies and really to advance human health. You want to maintain control of your intellectual property, and this applies to both the researcher and to the tech transfer office. And you probably want to share your model, but you don't want it to be a pain in the butt. It's certainly not always so easy to get things shipped from your animal facility to another animal facility. And I know that the tech transfer office probably hates doing the MTAs. And you hate having to do the MTAs too. And certainly, there's another motive there, which is the profit motive. So if you can recover some of your breeding and production costs, and even gain some money to fund continuing research, that's certainly a motive too. It's very valid. There's definitely different distribution pathways available, and I would say there's no one solution. And to determine the best pathway, we really look at the overall transgenic market. We look at specific product considerations, and we look at the commercialization process overall. The market size, based on our market intelligence, is that genetically modified models represent a $1.3 billion market per year. So there's definitely money in there, and we've identified genetically modified models as one of our so-called strategic business units. So certainly our C57 Black 6 is never going to go away, but that's more of a commodity, right? And so that's sold on price and quality and things like that. But the transgenics really represent a growing market and one that we've identified as one of the most important things for our business. Interestingly, so those competitors I mentioned, for transgenics, they're not our biggest competitor. Most of it is in-house production, both at academic and not-for-profit institutions and at pharma. And that's never going to go away. If you have a specific model that pharma, they have that drug target, and nobody else is using it, we're not going to sell a bunch to everybody because only one company has made the decision to target that. So some points to consider. Is your model really a basic research model? Is it something that 10 labs in the US are looking at? Does it apply to industry? We like models that really appeal to both segments because really the continuing research by academics supports the development and sale of the model. We also have to look at model development. So there's a product life cycle. I think you probably know that you don't just generate a mouse and immediately everybody wants it. You have to look at the health status. So if it's in your facility, again, it's the issue of getting it to another facility. If it's through quarantine, that's certainly a pain. That's not an issue if you distribute through Taconic. Genetic stabilization is important. So you make these generally on a mixed background. Is the phenotype you described in your first paper still applicable when you backcross to N10? We have to look at breeding strategies. So certainly if we're going to sell these, we want to do it in the most efficient way possible. If we have a line that we can breed homozygous from homozygous to homozygous pups, that's a lot simpler than if we have to breed it het by wild type and genotype all the types. And that's not to say that we wouldn't distribute that kind of line, but certainly that increases our costs. We have to make sure that we can identify the genotype, and that sounds simple, but then when you start looking at the tree lines, it definitely becomes more complicated. We have issues of phenotypic expression, of course, too. Issues of what is the appropriate wild type control. I get a lot of questions about that every day. So certainly it is a concern for people who are buying the animals. If you have it on a mixed background, is there an appropriate control available?